We've been talking about the negative import list from the Defense Ministry. It was announced on Sunday on 10 a.m. And just yesterday, I and my Chief Publishing Officer for Swarajya, Amar Govindarajan, we discussed the significance of the negative import list, what it really means, and why the hype around it is actually not misconstructed. But today I'm going to go further with the Defense Ministry's negative import list. I'm going to discuss three main aspects of it. One, the significance. Two, the men who made it possible, the two men who made it possible. And third, the problems that the government will have to solve before they can really make something good out of this negative import list. Because essentially what this negative import list is doing, it's saying that come to India, it's inviting companies, it's saying come to India, manufacture here. And it's also telling the local companies that yes, we believe in you to manufacture, to cater to the needs of our defense industry. So we'll be looking at the three aspects. Now, firstly, the significance of it. Now, I discussed this with Amar also yesterday. I'll be putting a link in the description. The embargo, the equipments, the piece of equipments that have been put under import embargo, most of them are being already manufactured in India. So in one way, the negative import list, it also displays the range of production in India. It tries to showcase rather the range of productivity in India when it comes to defense equipment. If I go by my notes for this year alone, the deadline for this year, which is December 2020, there are 69 items. Of the 101, 69 items, the import embargo will come into play in December 2020 itself. 28 are from the Army, 12 are from the Air Force, and 29 pertain to the Navy. So 69 pieces of equipment will be going under embargo this year alone. These include your light combat aircraft, missile destroyers, floating docks, and all manners of guns and radars. If I go beyond 2023, 15 types of equipment in December 2023, they will be related to the Air Force and 7 are related to the Army. But interestingly, these include long-range land attack cruise missiles. These are some missiles which the Navy, the Air Force, they'll all want to build a stock of. So to make them in India is actually a great thing. But interestingly, if we go by the recent reports, there's another list which is going to follow. And this will feature high-value weapons and critical technologies. And therefore, the two lists together, the one that is going to come, including the high-value weapon systems and the one that has been put forward now, they'll make a great push for the Make in India campaign. So why is this big push against the Make in India campaign really necessary? Well, for one reason is that nations which are looking to fight a long war, say a country like China or Israel for that matter in the Middle East or America during the Second World War, they all manufacture their own defense needs. So that enables them to fight a war for a longer period. What we are doing right now, if you go back to June, we've spoken so much about this. Our defense minister was in Moscow trying to clock some deals with the Russian companies there because we were in the hour of a crisis against such a standoff in China and we wanted to stock up ammunition. This happened in Kargil too. This happened after the Uri surgical strikes too. This happened right after Pulwama too when they were almost conditions set for a war with Pakistan just before the 2019 national elections. So this is one reason why we really need to ramp up our Make in India capacity. But that's one aspect. Now let's come to the men who made it possible. And this is where some credit, some respect, some gratitude is really warranted. To begin with, it's General Bipin Rawat, the army chief who championed the idea of Make in India for the army, who championed the idea of producing defense needs of the defense sector within India itself. He's one. And now he serves as the chief of defense staff. And he's also continuing with the self-sufficiency mantra in a way. But that's not about General Bipin Rawat alone. There's another name which may not find a mention in mainstream media, but we would surely want to discuss that. That's Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, who retired as the Deputy Chief of Army Staff Planning and Systems in April 2017. It was in his tenure that the idea of Make in India was first discussed. The idea, the procedures, the bureaucratic hurdles, they were all removed. And he made an atmosphere that was conducive for Indian companies to manufacture goods. Now, let me be honest, there have been a lot of instances when Indian companies want to manufacture something and they've struggled. They've only struggled. But it was due to these two men that Indian companies found an atmosphere that was conducive to their needs, that catered to their needs and enabled them to make the defense needs possible for our army, for our air force, for our navy within India itself. So these two men deserve a whole lot of gratitude. And perhaps if they get it right, if the negative import list gets it right, these two men will be remembered in the military history of India. But it's not all. We know the significance, we know the men who made it possible, but we also need to be mindful of the problems that exist. Now, for one, the vast realm of defense public sector units, they are including the DRDOs, they include the ordnance factory boards and research centers. This is where the main power, physical power, the human resources are concentrated. The DRDOs, the ordnance factory board units, and their labs and research centers. Now, where's the problem? The problem is that there's low labor productivity, there's indifferent morale, there's ignorance, rampant ignorance, and there's some questionable work ethos. Now, it's not to stereotype that any DRDO institution or any ordnance factory board institution, all of them are filled with workers who are perhaps unprofessional, but there are certain problems. I'll give you some numbers here. For instance, in 2015, a CAG report noted that 74% of the 170 types of ammunition failed to meet the minimum acceptable risk level, and only 10% of those total ammunition types, they could meet the war wastage requirements that were there. And these were coming from the Ordnance Factory Board. In 2017-18, another CAG reported that the ordnance factories had only achieved 49% of their items, 49% of the targets, that is, and a significant quantity for the Army's demand for principal ammunition remained outstanding as of March 31, 2018. The OFB report, the exports from the Ordnance Factory Board, they have decreased by 39% from 2016 to 2018. And that's one problem. Now, of course, one could say that the tie-up with the private sector may help, and these are some ideas that have been floated, that why can't companies tie up with the government resources and, use their physical power, manpower, the physical assets that there are, and that will be one way of helping making in India to get companies to come here, use the resources that they can at their disposal, have an understanding with the government, have a public-private partnership, and then manufacture. Perhaps we should also make a short note about Israel, a country younger than India just by 1 year, and perhaps call it the conditions with which they exist, the geographical conditions in the Middle East. But they are now one of the biggest exporters of the world. If you go back to the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Israel, people were celebrating the possibility of the military collaboration, the intelligence collaboration, because that's the kind of respect Israel warrants. It's not just that, the underused public sector capacity, and this is where we need to really ramp up. We need to fix the lags in a bureaucratic sector. Just this morning, I read a report in the Economic Times that felt very disappointing. It said that the average defense procurement process in India, it takes 352 weeks. That is almost 7 years. And then that's just the procurement process. Then there's a delivery delay. That could be anywhere between 3, 5, 7 years. Who knows? But the procurement process alone takes 352 weeks on an average. Now, you could blame it to the bureaucrats. You could blame it to the requirements not being told at once. You could blame it to a number of factors. But the problem is, at the end of the day, our forces suffer. Now, the negative import list, as Amar also said it yesterday, it's a good start. It's about to start somewhere. But if we are to start somewhere and reach somewhere too, we need to fix these problems. For now, the negative import list, it shows the intent of the government of India. And if they can address the problems that we've just listed out, I think India will go a long way when it comes to catering to its own defense needs. It will not have to see its defense minister run off to a different country just to make sure that the nation's defense needs aren't at risk just when we're in the middle of a standoff with an enemy nation. Thank you.